This is Biology 1200, Vancouver Community College. I'm Maria Moreland, the instructor, and we are starting our course with the chemical context of life. Biology is multidisciplinary. We have physicists that can discuss the locomotion, for example, of certain animals. We have um, paleontologists that go and search for fossils that give us information about our evolutionary past. Chemistry is a big part of biology. Organisms are natural systems to which the basic concepts of chemistry and physics apply. Everything an organism does and everything an organism is relies on chemistry. And chemistry is dependent on atoms. On atoms and molecules. So here is a rather large molecule. This is called a coprotoxin. And it's the toxin of a king cobra. It's quite lethal because it causes paralysis. It blocks acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that causes your muscles to contract. It blocks that receptor for acetylcholine. Looks simple, but it's not. The bombardier beetle that you just saw, it has a gland on the tip of its abdomen that contains two chambers. One has hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide, and the other has a mixture of two enzymes, catalase and peroxidase. So when the beetle is threatened, when the beetle was threatened with that ant, which didn't look very threatening, but I guess the beetle felt it was threatening, it mixes the contents of those two chambers very quickly. So the enzymes catalyze the decomposition of hydroquinone and of hydrogen peroxide. And those reactions are exothermic. So they release energy, and it happens so quickly that the mixture gets very hot. The byproduct of chemical reactions is heat. And if it's a particularly strong chemical reaction, it's a lot of heat. Yeah, the oxygen from the decomposition of the hydrogen peroxide builds up pressure, and that's used by the beetle to spray its attacker with a stream of hot, corrosive liquid. The octopus in its skin has sacs containing chromatophores or cells. Nerves and muscles control those sacs. And you know how fast the nervous system works. They're very fast. For example, if you get cold, you'll get goosebumps immediately, instantaneously even. And that's your nervous system because every single hair follicle that you have has a neuron dendrite wrapped around it. So it happens very quickly, and that is the case with the octopus, only the octopus also has pigments, and some of them, iridophores, are pigments that create iridescent colors, and leucophores are pigments that mirror the back colors of the environment, which I think is absolutely fascinating. I don't know exactly how that works. Bioluminescence is another really cool chemical reaction in organisms. This is a jelly, and it's caused by a protein called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase. And it's an oxidative reaction. The byproduct of that is light. So chemistry is kind of the bottom of the hierarchy of a biological system. So here we have atoms that make up a molecule called actin. Actin is part of a myofibril, which is found in muscle cells. It also includes another protein called myosin. And actin and myosin both are involved in contraction of the muscle cell. So as you go up the hierarchy, there are emergent properties or functions at each level. So yeah, atoms have some properties due to the number of electrons they have, the number of shells they have, for example. Um, when they get together, the atoms, and form, in this case, actin, which is a molecule. The molecule is a contractile molecule. Indeed, you'll find actin in the pseudopods of the I can't remember the whole name, but the little protists that have the long pseudopods. So they get food at the end of their pseudopod, and then the actin shortens the pseudopod until the food is deposited into the cell body of that little protist. Yeah, so actin is contractile, so is myosin. And the myofibrils together make up a muscle cell. The emergent properties of the muscle cell is that they are able to move large things, your bones, for example. And then part of the organ system is the musculoskeletal system, and the emergent property of that is locomotion. These are all part of the rattlebox moth, and its locomotion just happens to be flight. Emergent properties. Here's another example. This is the functional hierarchy of the skeleton. So the cell is at the bottom of this one. I haven't shown the chemistry, but we're going to look at the chemistry of cells. Its chemistry is very important in that it can exude a mineral that makes up your bone. That includes calcium, potassium, and phosphates. Well, the cells exude the bone that creates a tissue. The tissue is connective tissue. In this particular case, it's compact bone. The compact bone forms a structure. In this case, the structure is a long bone. All of the bones together make the skeletal system, and all of the systems together make an organism of the human. How did George Clooney get in there again? I just don't know. I don't know how these pictures get into my lectures. Anyway, what are some of the properties? Well, cells have all the properties of life, but in particular, the property of interest is that they can excrete things. In this case, the cell excretes the mineral material. The compact bone itself, its property is that it is hard. It is a hard bone. It's not easily broken, although it can be broken. The long bone, its property is that not only is it a structural feature, but it also produces red blood cells and stores fat. The skeletal system, I think we said, is capable of locomotion, of posture, and of protecting different parts of the body. And the organism has lots of other functions. Actually, I just saw George Clooney. Who was it? George Clooney and Ryan Reynolds, I think, on the show that I just told you about that I don't remember the name of already. Anyway, it's a great show. So on the biological size scale, how can we see chemistry? Well, as you know, especially if you've taken your chemistry courses, you see it by looking at what reactants do. Yeah, you know this particular solution is acidic because you've added something and it's changed color. So that's how you can see chemistry. Can you see the atoms themselves? Yeah, you can see atoms, but you need a fantastically expensive, enormous kind of scanner. Yeah, a nuclear magnetic resonance imaging machine. So X-rays can, specialized X-ray machines can detect, and you're able to see things as small as proteins and viruses. These are in nanometers, so they're very, very small. You can't see them with even an electron microscope. We can see large proteins with an electron microscope. Yeah, we don't have one of those either. They're pretty expensive too. You have to go to UBC to see one of those. But with a light microscope, you can see some of the very large viruses, the pox virus. You can see bacteria with a light microscope, which is what we have at the school. If you go to 1,000 times in particular, and animal cells, they're around the, 4, 5, 6 or so micrometers, very small, very small. Nevertheless, you can see them quite well with a light microscope. So that's the biological size scale. And here are those various machines. Here's our light microscope, compound light microscope. And we've used those in the classroom. Here you can see, well, do you know what that is? What do you think that is?
X-ray microscope?
Well, hang on. No, this is a particular slide that is underneath the objective lens of the compound microscope. Yeah, I shouldn't have drawn on it. It kind of obscures what it is. There. That's a cross section. Sorry, Andrew?
Kind of looks like a red blood cell.
Yes, it's actually a blood vessel, cross section of a blood vessel. And all of these small things here are indeed, yeah, red blood cells. Good. The electron microscope, there's two kinds. There's a transmission electron microscope that you need a very, 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 very thin specimen for, and it shoots gold electrons. And there is the scanning electron microscope with which you get 3D images, 3 dimensions. Yeah, so here's your basic X-ray for which you, at the dentist, can see whether you have cavities. But the large, more complicated X-rays are the ones that can show you the structure of such small things as proteins and even atoms. How small are atoms anyway? How small are they? They're so small. They're pretty teeny tiny. We're going to talk about atoms and moles. But what I find really interesting is that atoms are mostly empty space. So, for example, if the nucleus was, say, a pea, then the electrons would be, well, let's see, where am I? I'm right by Stanley Park on Pendrell. And so the electrons would be in Burnaby. So it just kills me that atoms are mostly empty space. Good. Yeah. So I think next time we will delve into elements and compounds. I know it was quite a short lecture today, but that's okay. We got a lot done. On Wednesday, we will talk more about chemistry, but I would like to stop this lecture here. Thank you very much for watching.